Hi, this is Tom Young. I'm here in the studio with Bob Petrelli in our continuing conversation around some of the election issues coming up for our re-election campaign. This topic, we're going to talk a little bit about traffic and roads and issues revolving around that. A lot of it ties back into some of the development that's going on. People will say, what about the traffic? That's a legitimate concern. There's a process for that. But then in general, what's going on with the roads? You know, we try some creative things. We've had some problems with some recent paving projects we did specifically in Old Town.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so let's talk about the problems. We'll talk about roads, and we'll talk about the process for how we're doing with traffic. I used to live down in the south end of town. You live down there on Otto Road. It was the first time we used this rubberized chip and seal.
Yeah, that high-performance chip and seal,
Yeah.
Worked great.
It worked great on Otto Road. And that was about 7 years ago. And that's still in great shape from that. And the reason we did that is, you know, we found ourselves had to be maybe 10 years ago where we found that we were falling behind in maintaining the roads. So what we did was we said, let's get on a plan with a recognition that every mile of road in town, there's like 80 miles.
That's right.
Is going to have to get treated and repaved once in 30 years. And the issue is, how do you make the 30 years 35 and not 20 by maintaining and doing the right things? And so we looked at a variety of different ways, everything from the most expensive way, which is to do a complete foundational rebuild, to a surface pave, to surface treatments, high-performance chip seal. And what you're really trying to do is to maintain road stability and traction for wet road conditions. Like, you don't want it to be slick.
Right.
Because you get a little engine oil in there, it gets a little bit wet, and then people are sliding off the road when they hit the brakes. So the rubberized trip seal is a little rough, so it's safe. Your tires grip it in the wet and even in the snow. The second thing is the rubberized aspect of that allows for expansion and contraction during the temperature changes, so you don't get cracks. Cracks are the killer of the roads.
Right.
Water gets in there, it freezes, pops, and you get potholes.
Ruins the roadbed, sure.
So we did that project down there, and then we started doing it around town, and it's been very successful. But we had one application that was done in Old Town, and we've never really got a straight answer as to why it didn't work. There's
a lot of theories. You know, first of all, the roads there are narrower.
Yeah.
So the question is, does it get a lot of that traffic? So as cars drive over this high performance chip seal, you know, it sort of embeds it more into the vulcanized rubber and does a better job. In Old Town, it seems the worst places are the cul-de-sacs. And any cul-de-sac has a small amount of traffic, but these cul-de-sacs are really small. So a lot of folks, you know, they back out and then they sort of turn their wheel as they're stopped, sort of grinds the stuff and kind of lifts it. You know, that's one theory. The other theory is just somehow it was a bad job.
Yeah.
You know, it just didn't work well at all. So, as you know, in our last committee meeting, we approved a budget and a contract to repair that. And that should be done, I think, in the next 4 weeks. They're coming out to mill and pave most of the boo-boo. We
don't have the date set, but it's about 4 weeks. And we have a state contract that we're going to go do that with, and it's going to be concerned that, you know, we're going to mill it down and pave it under old school methodology. It's the reason we didn't do that is because we were very successful with this material, and it just didn't work here.
Yeah. I mean, if we look, you know, in our prior discussion, we talked about budget. You know, it's costing us about $1 million a mile to redo a road. So North Branch River Road's going to get done. K-Neck got done. Preston Drive got done. So if you kind of throw those all in and take an average by distance, it's about $1 million a mile. And as you point out, you know, there's 80 miles of road in town, and let's take you know, you're more optimistic than I am. You think maybe you can get 30 years out of it. Maybe it's 20. So, okay. So you're doing somewhere between 3 and 4 miles of road a year, right? Because you got to take care of the road that was done that 20, 30 years ago. Well, all right, use my math. That's $4 million. Well, that's 20% tax increase just to handle that. So that's why we try to do this high performance seal wherever we can.
Well, because we want to make 2030
Exactly.
by extending the life and where it makes sense. And again, the Otto Road was a great example, because before that was there, it was horrific, and it would have been. It wouldn't have fallen $1 million a mile. That would have been more expensive than that. Because of the topology and the nature of that, probably would have been to pave Otto Road
And
up
that
to
bridge.
the top of the hill. You'd probably be looking at $600,000-$700,000, maybe $1 million just for that one section. And we did it for a lot less money, and it's now lasted 7-8 years, and it's been great. So again, you live and you learn. We're not above making mistakes. We still, don't have a definitive answer as to what went wrong in Old Town. Regardless, we're fixing it. We're going to put in regular paving, hopefully within a month.
And there's other parts of road maintenance that we do that folks don't see. It was years ago. It was Case Road.
Right.
If you recall, there was I think it was a natural gas pipeline modifications, and their trucks just ruined the road. And they had told us they would take care of it. Well, the bill came, and they sort of didn't want to take care of it. So I remember calling the fine gentleman to make sure he took care of it, and that was $500,000, I believe.
Yeah.
And the road got fixed, and they wrote the check, and taxpayers paid zero.
Yeah. And that just took it off of our inventory of a road to get fixed.
Right.
So
somebody else will worry about it 20, 30 years from now.
This goes back to longer term planning that we had. We talked about that from a fiscal and tax perspective. We want to be good. We're trying to do the same thing with the roads to stay on top of it. We rank the roads out. We try to do the most cost-effective solution for the roads in terms of resurfacing, repaving, redoing. We try to couple it with other projects, because we don't want to make cuts in a road, because that degrades the performance of the road. So We're doing a sewer project. We're going to do a road project at the same time. And managing 80 miles, if you do the $1 million a mile, it's $80 million of expenditure over the course of 20 years, 30 years, maybe even 35 years if you can get good maintenance on those roads. So that's one of the things about our road program and what happened with some of the projects and the way we do it. The other thing we do to help save money is we have some paving equipment, and our DPW team we invested in some equipment to do some local jobs. So if you look at White Oak Park, the paving that was done there was done in-house. And we can do some small road projects. So the big projects we'll bid out and go to state contract, but the smaller stuff we can do in-house with some of our paving equipment. And that's helped save a lot of money versus having it done by a job. We can save 30-40%.
It's also helped us be responsive, because as you know, when you put this thing out for bid, it takes months.
Yeah.
And if something needs to be done quickly because some emergent reason why the road got torn up, we can respond.
Yeah. So the last thing is that, roads lead to then traffic. And people are, if I hear a gripe in town, it'll be around, traffic, this, that, or the other thing. And, we all sit in the same traffic as everybody else. So we know how bad it can be at different times of the day. Like 202 southbound, at in the evening can be a nightmare getting into.
It could be 40 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, even First Ave and Raritan coming down, it's just bad. So people are looking for all kind of cut-throughs and ways to try to avoid some of that rush hour traffic. You'll see it on 22 as well. A Country Club Road will go on westbound on 22. You'll see it, also back up in Branchburg a little bit. Not quite as bad as the Country Club, but the Old York Drayhook connection with 202 by Town Hall, that's a nightmare. And we're going to see other areas where it's going to be really bad. You'll see it at even Reddington Road in the morning gets a little bad. I pull out in my neighborhood, and again, it's just an observation. You pull out at the wrong time, and you're sitting there saying, I'm sitting there for 2 minutes to pull out of my street. It's like, because the traffic is never nonstop. If you're trying to make a left, it says it could be worse. So, especially people been here a long time, the rural nature of the town changes as there's more traffic. Our population may be stable, but people are still cutting through our town. If jobs get created here, people are coming here to work here from other towns. And with the affordable housing, we're going to see more traffic going there. So people, they see all this and they think that somehow there's this big holistic, architecture around everything that's being done. Everything's thought through, and it's not that it's not thought through at all. It's just not as integrated as people might think. So, for example, when we look at a development project, we adhere to traffic guidelines and things like that. But for the most part, the county has to approve the plan, not us. And the state DOT has to approve the plan, not us. So if there's a traffic light that has to go in, or signaling, or road reconfiguration, that almost always gets done by the county or the state, not us. And in fact, they don't want us doing it because it requires a level of sophistication that we typically don't have. So they're bringing in traffic consultants to do different things. So at the municipal level, we'll do a cursory review to make sure they're adhering to standards and guidelines. But the customization and fixing of things for a particular development. So think of, like, everybody's familiar with Wegmans on 202, right? You look at the reconfiguration of 202, they made two-lane left-hand turn northbound.
As you exit, yeah.
As you enter the facility.
Oh, yes.
Right? And then they have all and so I think they actually did a pretty good job given the amount of traffic that's there. So they have just south of that main entrance, there is an access point that you can hit.
You can go in.
You can go in, but you can't go out.
Correct.
And you can drive up around where the Olive Garden is, and you can sneak out southbound if you want. But they had to manage that whole traffic light. Now, across from there, the Thermo Fisher place.
Yep.
I think there's a big Wawa going in there.
That I understand failed.
It failed.
So yeah, it's on Uber pause. Yeah.
Okay. Well, something's going to go there because I don't think they're going to stay there, and you're going to see that intersection become much more complex. But those issues get resolved by the state DOT. They're not resolved by Bridgewater Township. And if that was in Branchburg, we wouldn't get involved. We would have a say in the matter in terms of the local impacts, following a design standard and municipal land use laws. But we don't, the major issues are in terms of configuration of roads and traffic lights is done by the county and the state. And in fact, it wasn't just till recently we had the Harlan School Road light. It was our first in-town traffic light. I don't know if people know that. There are traffic lights in town. They're managed by the government, the state, county, or not by us. The first one we had in town was the one at Harlan School Road. Now the one at the Drayhook and Reddington as well.
Okay.
But they weren't there before. They were there in the last few years. The first two municipally managed traffic lights. So, but it's an interesting. So a lot of people are coming to the town to talk about when we do the rezoning or the planning board or board of adjustment. They're thinking about the traffic impacts. Well, you got to go to the county planning board meetings where they discuss these things.
But they're right. There's no way you can have 1,800 and change dwellings coming into town that won't have a traffic impact. Our ability to mitigate that, there's a little bit of wiggle room we have. We can handle maybe some initial speed limits. I think we can handle. A lot of residents have come for speed humps and speed bumps, and we're thinking that might help in some of these cut-through roads. But there's the data we obtain also shades some of the discussion. For example, about half of the speeders in your neighborhood live in your neighborhood.
Oh, half, more than that.
Right, we have that data.
Yeah. Well, in fact, we again, one of the benefits, or maybe it's a burden, from doing this a long time. We would have situations where I remember people would complain. It was like, fine, we're going to put a cop out, and we're going to start writing tickets, and then they come back and say, please stop.
Right.
Because, they're just sitting out there, and we'll put one of our people who are pretty aggressive and writing tickets out there, and it's a lot of it's your own neighbors, and sometimes the people complaining.
Well, when I was last mayor, there was an issue on Whiten Road,
right,
with Waze and all the other navigation software programs you could have on your phone.
Whiten Road is 25.
Correct.
From 202, I think, all the way to
I believe so.
The whole way is 25, which seems a little bit low the whole way, but it is what it is.
It does, and the school certainly impacts that thought. But I sat with the police officer 5 o'clock in the morning in the squad car, watching. Okay, somebody tips it at like 42. Police officer grabs the individual. Yeah, they lived about a block away. So, and now we have the intelligent traffic counters and speed counters, and we're finding, I guess, a couple issues. Yes, there seems to be folks who like to do 40 and a 25. That seems to be a popular thing. But also some places where we thought there was speeding, it's really not. I think it's our inability to judge speed as citizens, right? Police officers get training in that area, but the reality situation is we all speed, we all go fast, we all go too fast, and the question is, what do we do about that? One answer might be do nothing. The other answer may be, well, is it really an exorbitant amount? Then maybe we should do something. Or is it, heavily pedestrian, or even worse, if it's got a lot of little kids there? Okay, well, we'll definitely need to investigate what powers we have. Folks think we can change the speed limit at will on roads. We can't. It goes through apparently a whole study period. And in fact, if you do the study and you find out that people are really speeding through the road, the speed limit might go up.
Yeah, there's a bunch of rules around. They just, because they don't want local municipalities creating speed traps and crazy situations. There has to be consistency across the state. So our ability to change speed limits is within those guidelines. It has to do with residential areas versus the road character, et cetera. I try to drive the speed limit in town. It drives my kids crazy. And I do it for a couple of reasons. One is I want to get a feel for what's it like to actually drive the speed limit in town, because we have to pray over this, and I get a sense of it. And for the most part, it's more relaxing. I know it sound corny, but you don't get, if you're going anywhere around here, if you go to the speed limit versus speed marginally, it doesn't change your arrival time more than
a couple minutes,
40 seconds, 2 minutes. And there's a level of stress when you speed.
Sure.
Like, am I going to get caught? Am I doing something? Or should I slow down here? If you drive the speed limit, it's just like, and the navigation equipment you have, like you have Waze or Google Maps, they tell you what the speed limit is, so you don't even have to look at the sign. And you can put on cruise control and I just do that. I find it more relaxing.
That's right. I guess.
But I'm not immune to speeding. I'm sure I've
Sure.
done it over the years, especially on long drives. You can speed, but basically, like you see it on the highways, go with the flow. 287, people are flying, but it's mostly a go with the flow.
Flying.
Turnpike, yeah.
It's funny that's your thing. My thing here is anytime I'm entering town, I come a different way. Just see what's going on.
Just drive around.
Different roads, different ways to come home, and see what's going on and who's doing what, and it's just a way to be more familiar with the town surroundings.
Yeah, I do it once or twice a year, probably more like once a year. I'll do a drive around either with one of the cops or Greg, our administrator. We'll just do a top to bottom 2-hour drive around town, just go through most of all the neighborhoods, just so I'm familiar with what's going on. Because we talk about some of these things in our meetings, and you want to see it firsthand.
Mm-hmm.
I did a thing with Jim Schwarn on our committee, and Mike Merchant and Larry Fox, who was one of the volunteers on one of our boards.
Wildlife.
And we took a tour of the Kanak farm in a truck. So Mike had a truck. We just drove around, not on the road. We were driving through the farm, and then we took a walk down to the river. And again, I've never been up there. You get a different sense of things, like, oh, this is pretty cool. So people should get a little more familiar with, some of the roads. I've been on all 80 miles of the roads here in town and driven around them, and you'll be surprised at some of the things that are in your own town. But it's something we have to manage over the time frame, and again, we're trying to balance all the issues. I want people to understand, though, that the traffic issues and stuff like that are going to get resolved. But at some level, if the development does happen, the traffic's going to get worse. We've all been to towns and locations in this country where the traffic is much worse than it is here. You go to Washington, D.C., you go to Atlanta, even get closer to the New York metro area, it's horrific. Some of the traffic. If you drive into New York, I drove in yesterday. It took me 2 hours to get to Manhattan just because of some of the gridlock alert for the UN Day and the Jewish holiday. So you can spend a lot of time. It's much worse than here. So people expect it a certain way. It might get a little bit worse. We'll do the best job we can working with state DOT and the county to mitigate the traffic issues. But, at some level, it's algebra with the cars. So
Very true.
all right. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.